On August 17, 2025, in São Paulo in the Itaca district, a routine patrol drove quietly along Tobias Leo Street. They'd stopped alongside a red Renault Duster pulled up at the end of a dead end for 2 full days. Neighbors had reported their rescue services. Fearful that the car hadn't stirred, the officers looked through the windows for nothing. One smashed the glass and was greeted by a foul stench, a combination of stale air and something more disturbing. A man was on the back seat, motionless. The keys and phone were nowhere to be found. There were empty bottles strewn around. The crime scene unit observed specks of blood at his nose and lips, and the body was already stiffening. The estimated time of death was about 24 hours prior, and so an investigation began that would soon untangle a story of love, revenge, and an expertly covered crime. Vinicius Moutinho de Paula was blissfully unaware of tragedy to come, had a quiet, decent existence. He was 28 years old and worked as a physical education teacher at a city public school on the east side. He taught children between 10 and 12 years old, had an unusual talent for engaging with them, and was highly respected by his colleagues. His pupils adored him because of his kindness and care. His colleagues respected his work attitude and willingness to help. During school hours, Vinicius operated an online health nutrition fitness shop that he had constructed from the ground up. He sold supplements and equipment on the internet, delivering orders himself to gyms throughout the district. All who knew him talked of his drive and humility. He never avoided hard work and fantasized about opening up a health academy where fitness would be available to all. His parents, Hugo, Silva de Paula, and Salvana, remembered Asen well-behaved and kind in early years. He did not have any vices, did not drink, and definitely wasn't interested in illegal drugs. He devoted his spare time to his younger brothers, assisting them with schoolwork and training. The family was poor but harmonious, and Vinicius felt obligated to supplement the family, both emotionally and financially. Everyone who met him saw someone secure from the inside, but lacking in arrogance. To friends, he was a mentor. To parents, a source of support. His father once described, his son was always putting others first. Spring 2025 saw Vinicius have more things planned than ever. He was saving funds to establish a gym under his online name. He spent his nights writing a business plan, talking with partners, and looking for locations in Villa Jacui and Jardim Nova Victoria. All the signs were for a great future. People around him would always comment on his unique approach with people. He never became entangled in gossip, steered clear of arguments, and rarely judged others. Even when confronted by hostility, he tended to back away instead of lashing out. That softness, that openness, some would come to think maybe was the very characteristic that killed him. Just before the disaster, Vinicius' coworkers sensed something was different about him. A brighter disposition and unmistakable optimism. He spoke about his future, marriage, a family, children. His life seemed to be falling into place piece by piece. In intimate conversations with those he loved, he expressed how everything was finally falling into place. No one could have anticipated the storm. His life had always been one of integrity. The type of man who lived benhaven, stayed out of trouble, and really did try to do right by people. That's what made what followed so troubling. It wasn't merely a crime. It was cruelty for its own sake. Lissa Gonavs Demat was a care technician at a hospital on the east side of the city. She was a single mother raising a young daughter. She and Vinicius Moutinho de Paula started dating in 2021. It seemed like a normal relationship at first until things began to change. Jealousy set in. So did outbursts of temper. Their relationship became rocky, veering between affection and irate breakups. The fights grew more common over time. There were public scenes, and according to Vinicius's family, one fight left him physically hurt, something he chronicled with photos. In 2023, they had broken up for good, or so he believed. Though broken up, Lissa kept calling, texting, phoning, begging for a second chance. She wouldn't take no for an answer. Vinicius did his best to put her behind him, concentrating on work and sports, but her calls never ceased. By early 2025, he began to worry. He had discovered medication among Lissa's things, heavy-duty sedatives intended solely for hospital application, not something to be stored or consumed beyond medical supervision. These drugs might have severe side effects. Upset about what he found, Vinicius made it certain to those around him reconciliation was not in the cards for good. Then came February 21st, 2025, a turning point. While visiting, Lissa purportedly dropped something into his drink. Vinicius testified later that he passed out and did not completely awaken for close to 2 days. When he finally awoke that Monday, he knew someone had hacked his social media sites without permission. Posts had been made saying he made up with Lissa. Personal messages were sent to his friends, including Juliana, a longtime friend of Vinicius. Those messages were threatening, insulting, and reprehensible for him to have made. That day, Vinicius went public, posting that his accounts had been hacked and that the posts regarding his relationship were untrue. He severed closure after that. As far as he knew, there wasn't an option for return. He shared the news with his family and immersed himself in his work. By April of 2025, things finally leveled out. His friendship with Juliana, someone he'd known since high school in 2011, progressed to something deeper. With friends, he said he felt like himself again with her, quiet, centered. He never mentioned February's event again, and had distanced himself from speaking about the past. For the first time in a very long time, he had something to look forward to and saw peace. From there on out, Vinicius and Lissa's lives took totally different paths. Whereas Vinicius aimed for concise goals and a future based on intent, Lissa's actions increasingly exhibited obsessive tendencies. She repeatedly attempted contact with him, displayed unwanted interest in his social gatherings, and responded negatively when word circulated that he was dating someone new. That underlying tension would go on to be essential to understanding what occurred in August 2025 São Paulo, Friday, August 15, 2025. Vinicius Moutinho de Pau that morning instructed his routine physical education classes for 4th and 5th graders ATA public school in the city's eastern sector. He filled out the attendance log and maintained the gym's equipment inventory through lunchtime, then worked out next week's schedule with the vice principal. There were no issues about his performance. All was normal. Following lunch, he attended to his side business, an internet sports store. He verified payment notifications, shipped supplement orders, and finished the necessary paperwork. He had a single personal delivery that day, a drop-off in the Itakura neighborhood. Around 6 p.m., he set out from home in his red Renault Duster, the same car that he used for most of his deliveries. The customer was waiting at a gym close to Avenida. Vinicius delivered the package, double-checked the order, received a confirmation through Messenger, and sent the receipt via email. The customer complained neither about the delivery nor the products. Around 7:00 p.m., Vinicius sent his mother a brief message. Going home now, it would be the last known communication with his family that night. His intention was to reach home, prepare for Monday classes, revise his notes, and go over the student roster. From the outside, it seemed like a completely normal day. Nothing in his work records nor messages with clients or co-workers suggested tension or conflict. By 7:00 p.m., all his tasks that necessitated him leaving the house were complete. Ought to have been on his way home, but after making that delivery in Itakura, Vinicius got a call from Larissa Gonalves Diote. She requested they meet amicably, proposing they get some drinks to celebrate her birthday a few days ago. Suspecting it would be a quick diplomatic chat, Vinicius agreed. Motel surveillance cameras later picked his red Renault Duster parked at a motel in Itakura. He was behind the wheel. A woman was waiting in the passenger seat. Motel records verified the registration. No problems reported. Lissa would eventually say she sneaked in unbeknownst without ID, but the front desk clerk had a different memory. Lissa flashed a digital ID and officially registered at 9:03 p.m. That account aligned both with surveillance video and the registry ledger. During interrogation, Lissa reported the evening was uneventful. They conversed, they had a couple of beers. She then reported that Vinicius had used cocaine. His friends, family, and co-workers strongly denied that accusation, stating he was devoted to a clean, healthy way of life and never touched forbidden substances, What's known for sure is this. They went into the motel at 9 p.m. They remained in the room for a few hours. Nobody ever saw Vinicius alive again. Itera, the evening of August 15th into the wee hours of August 16th, 2025. In the motel room in which Vinicius Moutinho de Paula had registered with Larissa Gonçalves de Amat, exterior security cameras evidenced no activity outside the building for the entire night. After 1000 p.m., his red Renault Duster stayed parked in the lot with no one around and no other person coming in or out of the room. The only testimony of what occurred inside was from listened from the digital record left behind. Lissa said the evening had been quiet. They conversed, had a few beers. She said Vinicius slipped in the bathroom, hit his head, but recovered quickly and did not appear seriously injured. She reported that they kept conversing afterward, and that while under the influence of alcohol, he became sleepy. But investigators were curious. First, Lissa was medically trained. However, she never notified motel staff or called for assistance, though a head injury, particularly one with alcohol, can be hazardous. Second, crime scene experts later found there was water along the perimeter of the bathtub, indicating a fall, but no indication of a call for assistance. Not to motel staff, not to the rescue services. Then, at around 2 a.m., messages started going out from Vinicius's phone to his girlfriend, Juliana. The messages were emotional, erratic. They included confessions and accusations written in a voice that didn't sound like his. One message read, "Couldn't sleep, stepped out for air, ended up betraying you. I don't know how I could have done that to someone like you." Juliana immediately felt something was off. The tone wasn't this. The words, the tone, it didn't ring as Vinicius talked, particularly the phrases that were more feminine in nature. She replied for evidence. A photograph, a voicemail, anything. There was no response. An hour later, the messages ceased. The phone went out of line. Investigators analyzing the timeline deduced that Vinicius's vehicle had stayed put the whole night. No one was observed leaving the room. The messages, it appeared, were dispatched from within at a moment when Vinicius might no longer have controlled his phone. Lissa subsequently informed investigators that Vinicius had been drinking, felt guilty, and sent the messages himself prior to sleeping, but that wasn't consistent with the information. The typing pattern, vocabulary, and the activity of the device indicated Lissa was using his phone. Surveillance cameras at 5:35 a.m. recorded the Renault Duster pulling out of the motel. A female was behind the steering wheel. Her body shape, hair length, and movement corresponded with Lissa's description. Vinicius was nowhere to be seen. The car was spotted going towards Tobias Leo Street in the area of Dom Bosco neighborhood. Lissa said that Vinicius was too drunk to drive and had requested her to take him to a quiet place. She said he curled up in the back seat and requested to be left alone. That later, she hailed a cab and returned home. S. Paulo, Saturday, August 16th, 2025. By early morning, Vinicius's phone was soon available. His mother, Salvana, couldn't reach him. Calls, messages, nothing went through. By noon, the family knew this wasn't a routine delay. Vinicius never disappeared without a word. His father, Hugo, and his brothers started driving their usual routes across the east side of the city from Itaca to Don Bosco. They checked parking lots near gyms, stores, and anywhere else he might have gone for work. By midday, Vinicius's family had already started checking urgent care centers and hospitals across S. Paulo and local UPA clinics, but his name wasn't listed in any ER records. The hours ticked by and worry mounted as they reported him missing to the police at the Villa Jacui station. Police took down his physical description, information regarding his red Renault Duster, and the time he was last heard from. Meanwhile, the family contacted Lissa Gonçalves de Amat. During the first call, she said she had caught a glimpse of Vinicius Saturday night, reported that she had gone home about midnight and hadn't heard from him since. When questioned about where they'd been when they last saw each other, she didn't have a decisive answer. Later that evening, in a second interview, her delay was altered. This time, Lissa reported that she had spent the entire night with him and that they broke up about 8 a.m. For details as to where they split up, she initially responded that she couldn't recall the name of the street. And then she said that he had dropped her off in the vicinity of the Don Bosco station. Lissa's family listened intently to everything she told them. The discrepancies weren't merely timing-related, but location-based too. When questioned about getting home, Lissa said she rode an Uber, but she couldn't remember which street she hailed it on or what time she departed. When asked to display the history of the ride in her app, she said she had lost her phone and was now employing a fresh one she purchased that day. Later, hoping to obtain a more coherent account, Vinicius's family also called her again, this time with her sister present and the dialogue recorded on a voice memo. When played back, Lissa's responses became increasingly inconsistent. She gave conflicting descriptions of the same time frame. Asked where precisely Vinicius's car had been parked, she replied it had been on a dead-end street, but could not specify which one. Her story for the way she had lost her iPhone too kept changing. One minute she said she left it in the car while on an app, then a taxi. Eventually she said she wasn't certain whatsoever. For Vinicius's family, this was the point of no return. Lissa was the last person to have seen him, and her chronology, her stories, and her place details kept shifting. By Saturday night, the family had solidified a conclusion. She was not speaking the truth. They turned the audio recording over to the police with a written breakdown of her different statements, annotated and stamped, indicating precisely where her story had changed. Vinicius's phone remained offline. Efforts by messaging apps or email to contact him were met with silence. The family asked police to review surveillance cameras at the Itaquera exits and the roads leading to Don Bosco. They also asked patrols to be on the lookout for his red Renault Duster. By nightfall on August 16th, friends had joined in the search. They canvassed side streets and back alleys in the vicinity of train stations, snapped photos of dead-end streets, and waved down any car that seemed to have been parked too long. Still nothing. At that point, one thing was becoming agonizingly obvious. Whatever had occurred, it had occurred after he'd met with Lissa, and her account wasn't adding up. The forensic toxicology report materialized at the S. Paulo Homicide Division. DHPPP following a complete battery of tests on Vinicius's blood, urine, and stomach contents. Both the initial screening and confirmatory analysis confirmed the presence of powerful sedative drugs. Drugs controlled under restricted use and usually given only within licensed medical establishments. The level of these sedatives was far above therapeutic dosage, high enough to lead to extreme suppression of the central nervous system. At the same time, the autopsy report showed definite evidence of oxygen deprivation, pulmonary edema, frothy fluid in the lung airways, all consistent with respiratory arrest. Of particular interest, there were no signs of severe head trauma. No skull or brain injury evidence was present, the type that would have accompanied the tale of a fatal tumble in a bathroom. This flew directly in the face of the story that Vinicius died from a slip and fall and striking his head. Alcohol was present in his system at levels of moderate intoxication, but alone. That level would not have resulted in respiratory arrest, but in combination with the sedatives were detected, it produced a harmfully depressive effect on the respiratory control of the body. The forensic experts were adamant. It was the combination of alcohol and these drugs that caused a gradual collapse of respiratory function resulting in death. Evidence recovered from the scene. Empties and surface swabs from within the vehicle were examined. No conclusive biological evidence was discovered on the containers to definitively establish how the drugs were administered. Yet, that didn't preclude the possibility that the sedatives had been added to beverages and consumed previously, perhaps in some other place. The chemical makeup of the drugs corresponded with both Vinicius's blood and gastrointestinal content, which meant the drugs had been ingested orally several hours prior to death. The Forensic Medical Committee made a clear decision. This was not an accident. There were no indicators of any natural medical process that could account for the cause of death. The whole clinical presentation pointed towards deliberate ingestion of sedatives and combine it with alcohol, a combination that resulted in lethal respiratory depression, most likely while Vinicius slept or was heavily sedated. Lissa's career and her access to medical-grade substances provided prosecutors with good cause to suspect she'd both the means and the motive to procure and administer these drugs. The laboratory results put everything on hold. What began as a mystifying, unexplained death in a Carno was something different altogether, a deliberate poisoning, disguised as a willing act of isolation. After the toxicology and forensic teams came up with conclusions, DHPP submitted a complete report to the district attorney's office. It had a detailed timeline and an evidence list. Based on the prosecutor's request, AS Paulo Court granted a temporary arrest warrant for Larissa Gonalves de Ota and the authority to seize any and all items possibly related to the investigation. Early morning, S. Paulo's Homicide Division DHPP officers raided an address on the east side of the city. Larissa Gonalves de Modi was arrested without a fight. She was brought to the station, read the reasons for her arrest, and offered access to legal representation. A judge-ordered search of the premises resulted in the following items being confiscated: a new bought cell phone with nothing recorded of its former owner, a notebook with written documentation of her shifts at the hospital, and packets of medicine, including outdated single-use syringes found outside any typical home medical cabinet. All confiscated items were sealed and forwarded for forensic examination. Following a medical checkup, Lissa was booked in a holding center for temporary detention. The State Public Safety Office verified that the arrest was procedural, relating to the investigation of Vinicius Moutinho de Paula's death. The authorities confirmed that they were still working to develop their case based on the theory of intentional poisoning, set to appear as if the victim had opted to keep himself to himself in his car. Vinicius's parents, Salvana and Hugo de Paula, same day arrived at the DHPPP with more evidence. They gave investigators an audio tape of a conversation with Lissa, as well as transcripts of what she'd said before, documents full of contradictions regarding when and where she'd last seen their son. For the family, this was the first time in months that this felt like actual movement toward accountability. It was a relief, but not peace. Public response was immediate. Teachers at Vinicius's school, parents of his students, and neighborhood residents signed a statement supporting the family and insisting upon a full trial. On social media, messages came pouring and pressuring prosecutors to proceed with charges and bring the case to trial before a jury. Journalists contacted the DA's office for word on when formal charges would be filed. The next steps procedurally were obvious: examination of the seized devices and drugs, forensic examination of digital communications, preparation of a formal indictment by the prosecutor, and eventual referral of the case to court. No verdict was rendered, but the case was progressing from preliminary conclusions to trial, where all evidence would be considered in public. The funeral was a closed affair. No press releases, no media coverage. Salvana, Vinicius's mother, remained at the casket side until the last prayer. She didn't criticize. She didn't blame. She just asked investigators to keep her posted every step of the way. At home, she started packing his things nicely, carefully, into boxes. She no longer avoids phone calls. Each ring could be important. His father, Hugo, took care of the details, organizing papers, printing out medical records, writing questions for the prosecution. He talks with authority, calm, straight. But when he went into the school to turn in his son's things, his voice cracked. The brothers did their best not to break. They accompanied their parents to the police station, assisted in answering media questions, and kept an eye on social media to keep rumors under control. One of them now takes Salvana to the cemetery on Sundays. Juliana, Vinicius's girlfriend, stayed away. She provided police with her chat, records, and a lengthy description of the weird messages she was receiving that evening. Then she changed her number and avoided going close to the areas they would go. She goes to the tomb early, places a note, speaks nothing, and turns away before others come. Lissa in detention has not confessed guilt. Under interrogation, she defers to her lawyer and says one thing over and over again: "I didn't do anything illegal." No apologies, no explanation of the contradictions. At the school where Vinicius used to work, his picture now appears on a memorial board. Teachers recall his tranquil presence, his soft voice during class, and how he lingered after school to assist students who had trouble. Parents remember how he addressed each child with patience and respect. During the burial, the bidding was subdued. A brief prayer from the priest, a few words from coworkers, the grief of a family, no dramatic vows, just a clear, steady plea that justice would be pursued to every end. The family's hope is simple and direct: to witness a public trial where everything will be heard. The footage, the forensic findings, the testimonies. They don't want noise. They want a verdict, one that tells the truth about how Vinicius died and who is responsible. Thanks for watching, everyone. Your support means a lot to me, and you can help my channel grow by clicking that like button, leaving a comment, and sharing this video. Your engagement really makes a difference. See you soon.